Most wealth advice assumes you already have money to work with. Invest your surplus. Diversify your portfolio. Let your assets compound. All true, all useless. If there is no surplus to begin with. This video is not for people with surplus. This video is for people who are tired of being told to think bigger. While their bank account says otherwise, Machiavelli never had the luxury of abundant resources. He wrote his most important work while exiled, stripped of position with almost nothing. And what he understood, what he proved, is that strategy does not require capital. It requires precision. These are 10 brutal strategies. Brutal because they require honesty most people avoid. Brutal because they work regardless of how little you start with. And brutal because once you understand them, you can no longer use "I don't make enough" as the explanation. Strategy 1. The income lie that keeps you poor. Here is the lie almost everyone believes. If I just earned more, everything would be fine. It feels true, it feels obvious, and it is almost completely false. Machiavelli observed something about human behavior that modern research has only recently confirmed. People do not spend according to their income. They spend according to their identity, and identity does not automatically upgrade when income does. This is why people who win the lottery often end up exactly where they started within a few years. The money changed. The identity didn't. The first brutal strategy is this. Stop waiting for the income increase to fix your behavior. Fix the behavior first. Because if your spending identity doesn't change, a raise just means a more expensive version of the same problem. This is not about your income being irrelevant. It's about sequence. Behavior first, income second, because behavior determines whether any amount of income actually becomes wealth. Strategy 2. Pay the vault before you pay anyone else. If you remember only one strategy from this entire video, remember this one. This is how most people structure their finances. Pay everyone else first. The landlord, the bank, the subscriptions, the convenience purchases, and whatever survives goes toward your future. Notice what this structure communicates. Your future is the lowest priority on the list. Not intentionally, but structurally. Machiavelli would have found this structure absurd. He believed that the most important obligation gets paid first, not last. Not if there's anything left. First. The second strategy is a non-negotiable rule. The moment income arrives, before rent, before bills, before anything, a portion goes to the vault, even if it's small, even if it feels insignificant, even if it's the equivalent of a coffee. Because this strategy isn't about the amount, it's about the order. What you pay first is what you've decided actually matters. Everything else is negotiation. The vault is not negotiation. Strategy 3. Track every coin like it owes you an explanation. Most people on a low income believe they already know where their money goes. Rent, food, the basics. There's nothing left to track. This belief is almost always wrong. Machiavelli warned that the most dangerous threats are the ones too small to notice individually. A single coin spent carelessly means nothing, but a pattern of small, careless decisions compounds into something significant. The third strategy requires brutal honesty. For 30 days, track every single thing you spend money on. Every coin, every small purchase, it's just this once. Not to judge yourself, to see clearly. Because here is what almost always happens. People discover that the money they thought they didn't have was leaving anyway, just quietly, just in pieces too small to notice. The third strategy doesn't ask you to spend less. It asks you to see accurately. Because you cannot redirect a flow you cannot see. Strategy 4. Live below the line everyone else lives at. This strategy will feel uncomfortable because it goes against everything modern culture teaches. The culture around you is engineered to keep you spending at the exact edge of your income. Not because anyone is plotting against you specifically, but because an economy of constant consumption requires people to consume constantly. Machiavelli called this living within your means. But the brutal version of this strategy goes further. Live below your means, even when your means increase, especially when your means increase. This is sometimes called stealth wealth. Not because there's anything to hide, but because the entire strategy depends on nobody noticing, including often yourself. The fourth strategy is this. Identify your current spending line, then deliberately live slightly below it. Not dramatically, not painfully, slightly. That gap, small as it seems, is the entire foundation of everything that follows. Strategy 5. Turn your one skill into a second door. On a low income, the temptation is to look for a second job. More hours, more shifts, more of the same transaction, time for money, just repeated twice. Machiavelli would call this doubling the cage, not escaping it. The fifth strategy is different. It asks, what is the one skill you already have? That could open a door shaped differently than your main job. This doesn't need to be dramatic. Writing, editing, basic design, organizing, teaching. Something you already know. Small skills, sold in small amounts. To people who need exactly what you already have. The income from this second door will likely be small at first. That's not the point. The point is what Machiavelli understood about redundancy. A second source of income, even a small one, changes your relationship with the first, because the moment you have two doors, neither one controls you completely. Strategy 6. Stop competing on price with your lifestyle. Here's an uncomfortable truth about low-income life. A huge portion of spending isn't about necessity, it's about comparison. We live in the most comparison-saturated era in human history. Every purchase decision is influenced, not just by what we need, but by what we've seen others have. Machiavelli wrote about the danger of envy, but he also recognized its inverse, the danger of being envious yourself, of constantly measuring your position against others, and spending money to close a gap that was never real to begin with. The sixth strategy is a mental shift. Stop trying to keep pace with a lifestyle race that has no finish line. Your financial decisions should be benchmarked against your own goals, not against people whose actual financial situation you cannot see. Because here's what nobody shows you on social media. The debt behind the new car, the credit behind the vacation, the stress behind the lifestyle. You're not actually competing with their life. You're competing with their highlight reel. Stop entering races you can't see the real scoreboard for. Strategy 7. Use boredom as a weapon. This strategy sounds strange until you understand it. Boredom in the modern world has become unbearable, and that unbearability costs money. Machiavelli lived in a world without constant stimulation, and he used the empty hours for thinking, planning, strategy. The modern world has filled every empty hour with consumption opportunities. Every moment of boredom is now an algorithmically optimized moment to spend. The seventh strategy is uncomfortable but powerful. Practice sitting with boredom, without reaching for relief, without filling the gap with a purchase, because boredom tolerated becomes thinking time, and thinking time is where the second door from strategy 5 actually gets built. The people who cannot tolerate boredom spend their way out of every quiet moment. The people who can use those moments to build their way out of everything. Strategy 8. Negotiate everything, especially when it feels awkward. On a low income, every dollar matters more, which makes this strategy more important, not less. Most prices outside of basic groceries have more flexibility than people assume. Service fees, interest rates, subscription costs, even rent in certain situations. Machiavelli understood negotiation as a fundamental skill of power, not because it always works, but because the cost of asking is almost always zero. The eighth strategy requires tolerating a small amount of social discomfort in exchange for a financial benefit. Most people skip this exchange entirely because the discomfort feels larger than the benefit. But add up every awkward conversation avoided over a year, and the number becomes significant. The eighth strategy is simple. Before accepting any price as fixed, ask if it is. The worst outcome is the price stays the same. The best outcome is money that was never going to be yours otherwise stays in your pocket. Strategy 9. Protect your credit like it's a weapon, not a convenience. For people on a low income, credit is often misunderstood in one of two ways. Either feared completely or used carelessly. Both are mistakes. Machiavelli understood weapons as tools that required discipline. A weapon in untrained hands is more dangerous to its owner than to anyone else. Credit used without discipline becomes exactly this. High interest, minimum payments, a balance that grows, while the person holding it believes they're managing it fine. But credit, understood correctly, is leverage. It's the difference between qualifying for opportunities and being locked out of them. Better interest rates, larger opportunities, access to systems that compound wealth. The ninth strategy is precise. Use credit deliberately. Pay it in full when possible. Build the score as an asset, not as access to spending you can't afford. Because on a low income, a strong credit position is one of the few forms of leverage available, without requiring capital you don't have. Strategy 10. Think in decades, not in months. This is the final strategy, and it's the one that makes everything else possible. On a low income, Every strategy in this video will feel insignificant in the short term. The small amount saved, the second door barely generating income, the negotiated bill saving a few coins. In a single month, none of it feels like enough. Machiavelli understood time differently than most people. He wrote from exile, knowing his work might not be recognized in his lifetime. And he was right. It wasn't, but it outlasted everyone who dismissed it. The 10th strategy is a shift in measurement. Stop asking, did this work this month? Start asking, will this still be working in 10 years? Because every strategy in this video is small, individually, monthly, but stacked across years. Small strategies become the entire foundation of a different life. 10 strategies. None of them require you to already have money. All of them require you to think differently about the money you already have. The income lie that keeps you poor. Pay the vault before you pay anyone else. Track every coin like it owes you an explanation. Live below the line everyone else lives at. Turn your one skill into a second door. Stop competing on price with your lifestyle. Use boredom as a weapon. Negotiate everything, especially when it feels awkward. Protect your credit like it's a weapon, not a convenience. Think in decades, not in months. None of these strategies are exciting. None of them will go viral on their own. But every person who has ever built wealth from nothing has used some version of every single one. The next video shows you exactly what to do.